Here we go. Thank you, Kathy. And good morning again. Wisdom's a big topic. It's a real big topic. And what I want to start out by saying is it not only comes from experience, it comes from the grit of the journey, from falling down and picking yourself up again and again and learning from it. Wisdom is cultivated by engagement, by making mistakes, but it's also by learning again and again. So it points to, when we say wisdom that, reject any wisdom that doesn't know how to cry, any philosophy that doesn't know laughter, any greatness that isn't humbled by the laughter of children. This all points back to how well do you know yourself? How well are you in touch with all facets of yourself? And that means the rascal side within you. That means the joyful side, the loving side, the side that's frightened and tentative, the side that's anxious. How well have we integrated all those parts within us and have been able to simply rest and to be comfortable in the flow of life? So we all have wisdom, absolutely. And the question is, are we using what we know, and can we access it when it's necessary? So what's wisdom? It's the soundness of action or decision. The soundness. It means wisdom is skillful means. How do we be with a situation skillfully so that it uplifts the situation? Okay. Well, what about how do you get wisdom? Well, trial and error. But it's also not only trial and error, but how we integrate that trial and error. How do we bring those experiences into our inner sanctuary in a way, look at them and hold them in such a way, add knowledge to that, add patience to that. Wisdom is kind of a mixed bag of a lot of things. But if you look in your life, how have you arrived at some of the things that come out of your mouth or some of the actions that you've done? Has it not been through experience, through patience, through knowledge and judgment? If you think of the carpenter or the woodworker, a master woodworker, let's say, it takes a lot of butchering that wood in order to really figure out how to cut with the grain, how to drill and nail without splitting it, how to finish it properly. It takes patience. To become a master worker, it takes time, age. To be a master at playing piano or singing, you have to wait for the muscle memory to completely integrate into your body so that when you play, you're not thinking about what you're playing, but it just comes through you. And that's kind of the art of wisdom. That you know something so well within your body that it flows through you when it's necessary. And it's a flow. So here are some of the questions I had for the blurb. How do we acquire wisdom? That was the first question. How do we acquire it? Well, do you go to the supermarket? No. Is it in books? Well, you can get hints in books, absolutely. But it's your own direct experience. It's your own wisdom. And that's the most important part, because your flavor of wisdom is what's valuable, not necessarily what's in the book. Are we born with wisdom? I don't think so. We're born with instincts, and they might be good instincts, but wisdom comes through experience, the trial and error. falling down, picking yourself up, learning from it. Can we develop wisdom? Absolutely. If we pay attention. And if we don't pay attention, and if we're not interested, we'll repeat the same thing again and again and again. We'll marry the same person when we won't. We'll make the same mistakes, and we won't learn from them. But that's also part of it too, because there will be a time when you go, yes, enough's enough. And there will be awakening, and that's the wisdom, and when that's all put together. My hunch is that wisdom, when there's a need, it simply bubbles up. If you think when you're forced with a situation where someone is really asking you for your advice, or there's a problem that needs your attention, and there's a quiet time where you sort of go within and you access and you sort of go, boom, and something comes. We have no idea where that comes from, but it comes. Can we trust that? Can we trust that which comes when it's needed? And my hunch is that wisdom isn't just out there to be plucked off of trees. Wisdom comes through you when there is a need, when there is a genuine call for it. When someone comes to you for advice, there's a reason, and you listen, and something comes through. We recognize wisdom like the story of Solomon, where the two mothers were brought before Solomon saying, you're going to have to figure this out. They both claimed to be the mother of this child, and we can't figure this out. What do you say? And so Solomon listens to them. And in his wisdom, he figures, well, if I claim to cut them in half, maybe one of them will speak up. And that's what he does. He brings the swordsman out to cut the child in half so he can divide them equally. And one of the mothers says, stop. Don't do it. I confess, I'm not the right mother. Give it to that person. And Solomon, in his wisdom, turns and said, we're not going to cut the baby in half. But I can tell that you'll put your love for that child over your own needs, that you would give your child away to keep your child safe. You are the rightful mother. And I love that story because it rings true to me. It rings as wisdom, as somebody who has been through the grit of the journey and has that kind of knowledge of human nature where he can come and do that, make that kind of declaration. Accessing wisdom. When we look inside, at least when I look inside, it's kind of like looking into a college apartment with a lot of noisy roommates. And if I'm looking for wisdom, boy, there's clothes all over the floor. And they've had a drunken party the night before, and they're hungover, and there's lots of snoring, and it's just disheveled, and it's. How do you find wisdom at a noisy cocktail party, or when your roommates are around? And the easiest way is that you go to another room. You somehow have to quiet the noise that you can listen to the sound of the genuine, to the sound that is already there, that's your own wisdom. And so for me, when I look around the party looking for wisdom, or I look around the room, I have to find a clean space. I have to find a quiet space. And in the quiet, this is where the wisdom bubbles up. This is where the sound of the genuine can be heard. And so what am I listening for when I'm listening for the sound of the genuine? It could be, we can say, the sound of spirit, the sound of the beloved, the sound of our own innate intelligence. I'm listening for a voice that does not demand, a voice that merely whispers or suggests, a voice that invites me to be better, a voice that encourages me, a voice that has answers to what I'm looking for. And it's very subtle. It's not a loud voice at all. And I know you've heard those voices, those suggestions. You can tell the difference between your roommates, because the roommates that are loud, that are boisterous, that demand, oh, I think you should do this. It worked the last time, go ahead and do it. These are the voices that aren't so skillful. So when you're looking for the wisdom within, look for that which tastes or smells sacred. And you know what that smells like. It resonates. There's something that's just real about it that resonates. Some of our greatest wisdom when we're dealing with friends can be to simply be quiet. When I talked to I had a friend came up and visited this weekend, a guy named Stephen Rambo. He's a minister in Simi Valley. And I said, I'm talking about wisdom. And he says, that's easy. If you want to access wisdom, sit down, shut up, and listen. And how right he was. But something else can happen too when you're working with friends. In the listening process, as you're listening to a friend, you can invite them, tell me more. As they're sharing with you, tell me more. You're bringing things forward from them. Another thing you could ask would be, what have you already decided on? Because when people are in crisis or in tough situations, the mind is always pumping out information. And the idea for wisdom to come forth, you have to take a look at what's already on the table. So what have you already decided on? And something else is, well, if that actually happened, would that bring you peace? What is it that you really want? And the last one could be, could there be another solution? So when we're looking for problems, and when we're looking in our own lives, especially when we're in crisis, could there be another solution? Can we keep that fresh before us? Because wisdom is a paradox. I've talked a lot about experience. And experience is really important, but what's also important is beginner's mind. And that's the paradox. The paradox between knowing a lot and approaching it knowing nothing. And between that, there's a balance. And that's what our job is to find if we're to grow in wisdom. Can we approach something freshly and with experience? And what happens when we bring our experience first as we walk into a situation, we can have tunnel vision. And that happens to me a lot when I'm repairing things. I've repaired things like this the last time. Obviously, it's the same situation. I should go ahead and repair it this time the same way. No. It's a different faucet. It has a different washer. It needs to be repaired differently. So it's very important, each situation, because every person is different, is that we approach it cleanly, freshly, and we rely on our experience. But I think it's more important if we err on the not knowing side as opposed to the knowing side. We've talked about listening to the genuine. The genuine is that access point to that which blends all of our experiences together and brings it forth. So kind of in wrapping this up, listening is the best way to access your own wisdom, listening. But that's listening from a quiet place. Forget about being wise. Take a look at what can you do to simply be. So there's trying to be wise, and then there's being. It's very important to drop into being in order to access wisdom. Quiet down and let it flow. And I'm going to finish with this short story about Andrew Carnegie, who was probably at the time one of the richest men in the world. And what we didn't know about him was that so many people that worked for him were also extremely wealthy. And a reporter asked him, how is it that you have so many people working for you that are millionaires? This is the turn of the century. And he said, it's like, you must really pay them well. And he said, they didn't start out that way, as he talked to the reporter. I developed those individuals in the same way that you develop a gold mine. And how you develop a gold mine is you have to move tons of dirt and rock to find just 1 ounce of gold. Where's your attention? And so, when you cultivate a person, when you cultivate family members, are you looking for the dirt? Are you looking for the gold? What are you paying attention to? And when you look to yourself, what are we paying attention to? Our dirt or the gold within us? And can we bring forth that gold? And so, let us pray. As we take a breath together, simply pulling it in all the way in and then simply letting it go. Settling into that inner sanctuary, that place of safety and warmth, that place of silence and peace, the place where it is so easy to hear the sound of the genuine. And as we simply listen, being comfortable in the quiet, feeling the quiet that's in the room, and knowing that you can access this wisdom, this quiet, whenever there's a time of need, of true need, the wisdom will be there to guide you. And in expressing and acting upon that wisdom, you can not only transform yourself, but you can transform those around you. And this wisdom is always available should you tap into the sound of the genuine. So I declare that each of us has the gold within us, and that all one needs to do at this point is to simply invite the desire to simply mine it and to pay attention to that and to disregard the dirt. We are blessed. We let it be, and so it is.